As you look at live pictures, that is Air Force Two, which after several monsoon delays has finally touched down at Sky Harbor. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Mark Curtis.
And I'm Karima Devine. Tomorrow, she and her running mate will be holding a rally here in the Valley. 12 News journalist Jonathan McCall is out live at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. He is dealing with some weather, too. We heard it's very windy there. The vice president's plane was already delayed by almost like 45 minutes or so. I don't know if we have Jonathan. Do we have him?
I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Mark Uribe, good evening. As you just mentioned, Air Force Two touching down here at Phoenix Sky Harbor literally in just the last 5 minutes or so. We were actually wondering if this was indeed Air Force Two because we did see a plane hovering in the air, but it looked like the plane had been turned around and was just circling around downtown Phoenix because of the weather happening in the area at the moment. When we saw those strong winds, we saw a little bit of dust flying in this area as well as Air Force Two was trying to make its descent into Phoenix Sky Harbor about 10 minutes ago. But as you can see, Vice President Kamala Harris on board, finally landing here after having to take a longer route to get to Phoenix because of the weather happening here in Phoenix, those monsoon storms happening in the other parts of the valley as well. But finally arriving here on the ground, members of Arizona's delegation, Congressman Greg Stanton, Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays, Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, and Mesa Mayor John Giles are all here waiting to greet the Vice President as she descends off Air Force Two. But again, this is a live look at Air Force Two as it arrives here at Phoenix Sky Harbor. A little bit of a delay and a little bit of trouble as monsoon storms and weather here impacting the Vice President's arrival here this Thursday evening. Mark Uribe.
Yeah, Jonathan, of course, the Vice President is not traveling with her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. They travel separately. Any word on when the vice presidential nominee is due in?
So we just got an update from the White House communications team. They tell us that he is flying on a charter flight and is expected to arrive here at Phoenix Sky Harbor in about 30 minutes or so. His plane also likely impacted by the storms that we're seeing. No word on if his plane will be delayed even more because of the storms that we're seeing right now. But again, we're told that he should be arriving here in the next 30 minutes or so.
Jonathan, what details do you have on this campaign rally that's being held tomorrow? This is the first time that the Vice President will be here with her running mate, introducing Governor Tim Walz to Arizona voters.
Yeah, we were able to talk with members of the communications team for the White House who are here on the ground. They've been telling us that they've been busy trying to plan, organize, get a lot of the details secure for that rally tomorrow. They're anticipating huge crowds of people to come, and they're really excited to be here in Arizona again. We were talking with one of the vice president's members of her communication team. She was saying she's spending a lot of time here, and that for obvious reasons, and that this is such a key state for anyone looking to win the White House, and there's a reason why she is spending a lot of time here. But they are excited to be back in Arizona again, and the Harris-Walz ticket, excited to showcase and show off to Arizona what is available for voters come November.
And Jonathan, you may or may not know this. I know you're down on the tarmac, so you're not in constant contact with White House officials, but because I would think you want the optics of Vice President Harris and her vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, together, the iconic greeting shot coming off the plane in a battleground state. We're looking at the press, the traveling press getting off the plane and other people associated with it. But the vice president herself, Vice President Harris, will come off from the front of the plane. So what you're looking at now, you will not see the vice president coming out of the rear entrance to this plane. They typically deboard the press and those folks first, and then the vice president will come off. But Any word on whether the vice president will wait for the arrival of her nominee, Tim Walz, to get off the plane and then move on to the hotel? Or will they possibly keep her on that plane until?
As far as we know, Mark, we know that for a fact. As soon as the vice president does get off of Air Force Two, that she will obviously meet with members of the delegation from Arizona that are here. But I do not believe right now there is no plan for her to wait for Governor Walz to arrive. Again, we're expected for him to arrive in about 30 minutes or so for his plane to land here at Phoenix Sky Harbor. But as of right now, there are no plans for the vice president to wait for Governor Walz. And right now, what you're seeing right now are members of Arizona's delegation coming to greet the vice president. Again, leading the way in the front of the area, or that pack, Congressman Greg Stanton, followed by Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays. Then behind her is Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes. In the teal dress, there is Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, and behind her is Mesa Mayor John Giles. So members of Arizona's political parties here to greet the vice president as she disembarks off of Air Force Two.
You may have already mentioned this, but do we know if Senator Mark Kelly will be joining the group? Jonathan, can you hear me?
We have not heard whether or not Senator Kelly will be a part of that delegation, or if there are any other plans for him to meet the vice president while she is here in Arizona. But we are staying in constant communication with the VP's communications team to learn more details about who she plans to meet with while she is here in Arizona.
You know, this campaign trail has been pretty busy for the vice president. She made the announcement on Tuesday who her vice presidential pick would be, and since then they've been campaigning in the Midwest. What else can you tell us about this tour that they're taking across the country?
So this really was supposed to be a barnstorming tour about, really it was supposed to be seven states in about 5 days or so. After here, they plan to head to Nevada. But one of the areas that they were planning to go to before coming here to Arizona was the state of Georgia, which will be another key battleground state for whoever wins the White House in November. But because of ongoing storms there from now Tropical Depression Debbie, the White House as well as the VP's team deciding to potentially reschedule that, but they decided not to go there because of the storm happening right there in the Carolinas and Georgia. So that is why we're told the VP decided to move up her flight to come here a day early for that rally that's going to be held tomorrow here in the Valley.
Typically, when we see a vice presidential candidate or a president arrive, it's a pretty tight schedule. The president or vice president arrives, they go to their speaking engagement, they wrap things up, and they're back in the air. Because they're overnighting and this wasn't planned, any word on whether or not they're going to add any events either tonight or tomorrow morning before the rally?
There she is getting off the plane right now. Vice President Kamala Harris disembarking off of Air Force Two, coming down the stairs, and will be greeted by members of Arizona's political delegation as she comes down. As for the answer to your question, Mark, we have, again, one of the things that we have been asking her team is, because she will have actual time here in Arizona to spend potentially doing things, meeting with other people. Will she be meeting with any particular groups, any particular political figures here? So far, they've not been able to answer that question for us. They've been pretty tight-lipped on what the VP plans to do during her downtime before, while she's here overnight, if she will be meeting with anyone before that rally tomorrow.
Jonathan, Vice President Harris has been campaigning in the Midwest. She's been meeting with very labor-friendly voters there, which obviously helped President Joe Biden win his election. Do we know what issues she'll be talking about here in Arizona?
Well, I think she'll be pretty consistent with the messages that we've heard during her rallies earlier this week when she announced her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. I think one of the things that she will focus on, one of the things that has been a key focus on her are just rights, freedoms, liberties that they believe that under a different administration are now threatened and could be at risk under another administration. So she definitely will hammer home about that. It's something that's something that we've obviously seen her make as part of what was then the Biden-Harris campaign. Just those freedoms, those liberties that they say could be at risk if there is another administration in office. We've seen her several times here in Arizona in recent months harping on that message, kind of cementing that message of reproductive freedoms. I've covered a number of rallies since she has been here in Arizona recently. We covered one back in October when she was on the campus of NAU talking about education choice and education freedoms as well that could potentially endanger students as well. So there has been a lot of talk about just making sure that certain liberties, certain freedoms are ingrained and upheld under her administration, or making sure that those are able to continue if she's indeed elected.
It'll be interesting, Jonathan, to see what she addresses tomorrow. I'm sure you're aware of the remarks made by former President Trump today, comparing the crowds he drew to the crowds that the late Dr. Martin Luther King drew in Washington, and whether she will go after that tomorrow, or what points, aside from women's reproductive rights, maybe touching on immigration, jobs, and things like that, she'll address tomorrow.
It will be interesting to see if she does touch on some of the vice president's remarks. It will also be interesting to see what comes out from some of the traveling press on board Air Force Two. Maybe they've already been able to get her reaction to some of that, but it will be very interesting to see what she does have to say about those particular comments. More importantly, also, we do know for a fact that today President Trump agreed that he will now agree to a debate on September 10th. There had been some talk that she was going to do that debate on ABC as scheduled, and there was some talk that former President Donald Trump would not participate in that. So it will be very interesting to see what her comments are now that she issued that challenge directly to Donald Trump during that rally in Atlanta last week. Basically telling him that if he had something to say it to her face and to debate him. And now it appears that that really is going to happen. She will get that chance during that debate on ABC on September 10th.
All right, well, we see the Vice President's motorcade slowly leaving Air Force Two. They'll now head to the hotel, a wave from the Vice President, and off they go. Jonathan, thank you for your in-depth coverage there on the delayed landing of Vice President Kamala Harris, concerns about the weather moving in, our Arizona monsoon, and they finally got her on the ground. She's off and running, and now we wait for the vice presidential nominee, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and we'll come back as soon as that happens. Jonathan McCall, live at Sky Harbor. Thank you.